What are your thoughts on the 6th? What are your thoughts on the 6th? Like how the McConnell and the left sells it, and then how many on the MAGA camp and Trump's camp sell January 6th.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll tell you what I think of it, just, unvarnished. I think it was a terrible day for American history. I think the images that we saw on that day are terrible, and we can never have that happen again. I do not hold President Trump responsible for anything that happened on that day. Anyone who's a Trump supporter, after we had spent how many different speeches and ads and everything saying we support law enforcement, we support law and order, how anyone could go and do that. That's where I've always had questions about just how really some of these people were actually Trump supporters, or they were rabble rousers, or if they're some people who just had a screw loose. I do think that it's unfortunate unfortunate's too light of a term. I think it's pretty disgusting what the DOJ has done on people who say, for example, didn't enter the Capitol. I think if you can be outside the Capitol. There's no law against that. If you want to go out there and say, go and send these back to the states to have further debate on, that's fine. No one should be having any of their civil liberties infringed upon or have their life ruined simply because they're outside the Capitol. If you assaulted any police officers, if you destroyed any property, then I think you need to be fully held accountable for everything that you did. If you're outside peacefully protesting, so what? People protest outside the Capitol all the time. But again, it's the images of that day are things that for a lot of people, it's going to define an entire generation politically.
So on I don't know what day, this was the 1-year anniversary this year when Ted Cruz said the following: of all the things that January 6th was, it was definitely not a violent terrorist attack. He said that the next day, but later on that day. But earlier that day, he said it was a insurrection. It was a terrorist attack. Then Tucker Carlson came out. I'm sure he saw that, and he held his foot to the fire and said, "Hey, what is this?" And he said, "No, that's not what I meant." He said, "Look, you're a man of words. You know words. You're a guy that knows words. You said it. Did you mean it? How could you say something like that? You realize the repercussions of this." And it was a very uncomfortable day for Ted Cruz. Do you think that was? By the way, your mic is on. Do you think that was a situation where Ted was maybe that morning he's like, this is an opportunity where I can go and I have to have a different position than Trump if I'm going to run myself? Do you think that was one of those moments, or do you think he just had a bad day and he said the wrong thing?
So I worked for Ted in the primary in 2016 before I went to Trump. And just doing the quick rewind, if Trump had run in 2012, I was going to be his campaign manager, and I just assumed he was never going to run. I thought he got his apprentice deal renegotiated. He was going to stick that. So signed up and partnered up with Ted. Ted doesn't make mistakes speaking. I can't speak to what his thought process was. I've never seen him actually misspeak. I mean, so I don't know what all he was thinking or went into it. I am glad that he went and cleaned it up. I still think Ted's a pretty important voice, but I would disagree as far as the insurrection talk or saying that this is some kind of terrorist thing. I would disagree with that.
Yeah, I'd be curious because I think Trump's got a memory and he will remember comments like that being made.
You think?
I think that's either going to work in his favor or it's not going to work in his favor. It's meaning Ted. I'm not talking about Trump because. You think Romney's going to play any kind of a role in the next 2-3 years, or he's done?
No,
he's done.
He is so done.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I don't even know how he'd get reelected.
He's young compared to a Biden and a Trump.
He is. I thought Romney was.
How old is Romney?
He's in his 70s. Right?
I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think they're very close.
I thought he was late 60s is what I. Well, he's also same age, 74. Got it. Well, he looks good for a 74.
Taylor just looks great. I'm not going to.
Romney.
That's what some of that sweet Bane cash will do. I want those cryogenic
What do you think
machines.
happens with the GOP establishment, the Romneys of the world, the Cheneys, the McConnells, and the MAGA crowd? What's that relationship look like moving forward?
Yeah, there's always going to be an inherent conflict, and I don't even think it's necessarily unique just to Republicans. I think it might take a different form, but you see even with the Democrats and the progressives and the people who want to change Washington from the right or the left, and then people who say, actually, we're Washington. We're the ones, this is the Hunger Games. This is Capital City. We're the ones who make the decision. The rest of you guys just go and live with it. There's always going to be inherently some of that. And look, it is... I will tell you, this whole changing Washington thing is really damn tough. It's like going to the casino and saying, I'm going to beat the house. It's like these people who say, I'm going to beat the DOJ in some kind of legal thing. They have unlimited money, unlimited resources, and they're just going to keep pounding away. There's always going to be some of that conflict. But as far as the Republican base overall nationally, it's solidly with Trump. I mean, you look at the way that he single-handedly changed the trade debate. You look at the way that he's single-handedly changed so many of these, the international relations, the America First dynamic. I mean, it was only a decade ago that, someone coughs somewhere and we're sending U.S. troops. 5 minutes later, now we're taking much more of a, wait a minute, do we need to go and stick our nose into all these efforts? That's all because of Trump. And just the fact that Biden has left so many of Trump's China policies in place, I think just tells you how much Trump has moved, not just even the Republican base, but the country as a whole, into realizing the existential threat to China for the long term.
That's that in itself. If you were the Biden camp, how would you sell that? You're a campaign manager for Biden. How would you sell the fact that you've kept many of Trump's China policies?
Well, he ran on that.
Because you just claim him as your own.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that. I think you're right. I mean, that's what a amateur campaign manager is going to say, right? That's what an amateur campaign manager is going to say. But this is an opportunity to come out and win the opposite side and the guys in the middle to say, listen, at least this guy's being given some kind of credit on what happened there. But you have to stand to your and say, well, this is our ideas. Well, we got rid of every single idea that he had.
The only thing Biden can do is say, actually, Trump wasn't tough enough. We went even further. The country is so moved in the other direction with regard to China. I think we are moving towards a true decoupling. It's never going to be a complete decoupling, but you see the way that it's going. I mean, the decoupling of these economies is happening.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.